it is unprecedented for a leader of a UK political party to go to another country and slag off his own country. And that's what he was doing in the most disgraceful way. Now, I have concerns about some aspects of freedom of speech in this country, but I wouldn't go to a foreign committee to express them. Well, of course, what he admitted to say was that America has this same issue. In fact, it's far worse in America. Free speech is protected under Section 2 of the American Constitution. And yet, the American government, led by Donald Trump, now forces anybody who goes to America to say what their social media feeds are. And when your application for a visa is considered, the American embassy in the relevant country goes through your social media feed to see if you are an appropriate person to be allowed into the country. Now, that is a restriction of British freedom of speech. So I'm obviously flabbergasted that Nigel Farage didn't mention that in front of this committee. But to go abroad and say these things, particularly on a day when he should have been in the British Parliament scrutinising the government and asking a question in Prime Minister's questions, I think it is an outrage for Nigel Farage to do this. But let's stick to the issue and talk about whether you feel that freedom of speech is under threat in this country. Because he quoted the Lucy Connolly incident where she was sentenced to, what was it, sort of 30 months in prison for a very, very intemperate Facebook post that I didn't think that she should have been sent to prison. I thought it was incitement. And I mean, and let's face it, she and indeed Graham Linehan weren't arrested or charged under the Online Safety Act, as Nigel Farage seemed to think they were. They were both charged under the 1985, or was it 1986, Public Order Act. So, I mean, obviously Graham Linehan hasn't yet been charged, but Lucy Connolly was. She was tried and sent to prison.
I think it's kind of faux outrage about what Nigel Farage has done. I think, first of all, he was invited there by the Congressional Committee. And when I watched most of the Congressional Committee meeting, you know, the media picked out certain little bits where Nigel wasn't actually allowed to reply, and he was criticised for saying, "I'll have a coffee while you're ranting on." I thought that was quite funny, actually,
yeah, when he said, "Can someone get me a coffee?"
Yeah, because he was bored, because he literally couldn't get a word in edgeways.
No, he couldn't.
But a lot of the reason they were discussing things with Nigel, you know, is potentially the next Prime Minister of the country. So he is an influential person in terms of how the country's relationship with the USA could be in 4 years' time. But also they've got real concerns about the potential fines that can be imposed on massive corporations in America. Some of their biggest companies, you know, billions and billions of pounds, 10% of their turnover they could be fined for under a law that's been passed in the UK. Now, that's surely relevant to a congressional committee in America. And to say, oh, Nigel should have been at PMQs, if you think PMQs is a useful part of our democracy, then I give up, because it is a shouting match between
Neil,
two people.
It can be. Listen, you'll get no disagreement from me that it is largely ridiculous, but it is important still. It's about the Prime Minister showing up, being challenged, and if Kemi Badenoch or whoever's in that position at any one time doesn't use it well, what can you do? But there are moments.
Keir Starmer doesn't use it well, Sheila. Keir Starmer doesn't use it well. All he does is you can almost predict what the questions and the answers are going to be, and that's part of the reason why Nigel is doing so well in the polls, because he might say things that are controversial. The thing about North Korea, absolutely ridiculous, but by God, it's got a headline today and it's got people talking, and yeah, that's what Trump did in a way. He'd say outrageous things, but it got people talking, and people are fed up of this kind of stale PR speak that comes out from the government. You'll have seen today, and Femi fell into it before, and he's probably joined the club, but suddenly Nigel is unpatriotic and talking Britain down. So many ministers this has been fed to them in the last 24 hours. The Prime Minister used it. The minister on Nick Ferrari's programme used it this morning. So the
formulaic language, it's tedious.
They've forgotten further and faster, and now it's unpatriotic and talking the country down. From Keir Starmer, who's stood in the garden and said how bad it was all going to be and how dreadful the country was for months and months and months, and talked this country down.
Hang on,
it's
Neil.
ridiculous.
You listen again. I find their formulaic answers unbelievably enraging. I can't stand it. Just talk normally. And plenty of them can and do. People like Wes Streeting, he talks normally at you. He speaks like a normal human being.
I'd debate that, but there we are.
Well, I think he does. You might not. I'm not saying you would necessarily agree with what he says all the time, but he addresses the question you've asked in a normal human way. He
does come out with the same scripted responses that they all come out with. So if there's a difficult subject to talk about,
not in my conversations
this morning, it was make sure you roll out that Nigel Farage is unpatriotic and make sure you roll out that he's talking Britain down.
But
and they all use that.
Neil,
they all play that game,
Neil,
and that's what we're bored of.
All right, I hear you. I'm bored of it too. Would you say there was a difference? I would say there was a difference between the following. Keir Starmer, I think, mistakenly being too dreary and downbeat when he first became Prime Minister. You can be realistic and still bring hope to the table, and I think that was a mistake on his part. But what he wasn't doing was exaggerating the state of things. He was just only telling us the bad state of things, and that's a political mistake, I think. What Nigel Farage did was, in a foreign country, sat and said, Britain is now like North Korea. That is a disgrace for somebody who wants to be Prime Minister of this country. Don't you dare compare this country to North Korea.
I don't agree that we're like North Korea. I think we've got some issues, but I think he does it for a particular reason. He does it for the same reason Trump used to say the outrageous things in his election campaign, because you're talking about it, and we're talking about it. And who are we talking about? We're talking about Nigel Farage. And that's what he is trying to stop
as well.
happening, and that's what the Labour government's trying to stop doing. They're panicking. So for 1 minute they were pretending to be reform to try and counter them, and now they're saying he's unpatriotic, so they've changed their stance.
Hang on. Keir Starmer has zero influence over what I or anybody else at LBC, Sky, BBC. He has no influence over who puts what in their programmes and what stories we cover. Ditto the newspapers, none whatsoever. If he's countering Nigel Farage, he's countering him politically, and we are reporting on it. That's all.
Yeah, I understand that.
He's not running the show. He's not trying to silence Farage politically. He's not. He knows he can't do that. He's criticising him politically. That's legit, isn't it?
But I'm saying Nigel Farage is a clever operator, because what are you talking about today?
I was talking about Keir Starmer and Angela Rayner.
You're talking about Nigel Farage, and you've had neons kind of justifying some of his actions, and then you've had the lemon meringue hating chap on before who was also defending him and talking about free speech in the UK. And I think he went far too far about free speech in the UK. But we're talking about Nigel Farage.
That's all right, but that's okay. Of course we're talking about Nigel Farage. At the opening of the programme, of the hour, I asked what you thought of what this man, who claims he can be the next Prime Minister of this country, what he did yesterday in America. Of course we're talking about Nigel Farage. Don't talk about Nigel Farage every day. But we're talking about free speech. We're talking about whether he's patriotic. We're talking about whether you want to put your faith in him. And the answer from you, Neil, seems to be a resounding yes. Fine. You've used your free speech to tell me that.
Nigel Farage knows exactly what he's doing. He knows people are angry with the state this nation is in and the current government, like I also am. But he knows people will easily fall into the trap of blaming immigration and resorting to racially attacking people who don't look and sound like them, and they complain supposedly not having free speech. So it seems like that's what he's trying to protect. And when he is questioned and challenged for his own wrongdoing, he'll shout and insult people, and then he'll ban journalists from that platform. And that's not free speech, not at all. Even though, and because he knows he's responsible for so much decline and wrongdoing in this country. And he once said that if Brexit was a failure, he would leave the country. Well, he does that. He does leave the country, but unfortunately, he keeps coming back. I mean, the UK should know better not to subscribe to that narrative. And he's never in his own constituency, as you pointed out as well, and what Keir Starmer pointed out. And so he should be by now not what his constituents thought he was. If that answers the question.
It does. Well, it certainly gives me a view. Yeah, a strong view. Is he? Do you think one of the things he's trying to do there? I mean, he's trying to, gild the reform lily and his own image as much as anything else. But is he trying to undermine the Trump-Starmer relationship?
Of course he is. Listen, he's trying to undermine anybody that gets in his way, anyone he doesn't agree with. Of course, I mean, to be honest, I don't really know what Keir Starmer wants. I don't think Starmer knows what he wants either. But, I mean, yes, he's trying to... Well, he's basically just trying to...
What does Nigel Farage want?
Sorry. Well, what Nigel Farage wants is division. I think what he wants is division. And I think what he wants... And this, I could be wrong, but it sounds like what he wants is people's trust and then he'll want his bank account refilled. So this is the point. I think he wants money. I don't think he believes in the UK at all. And if he did believe in the UK, he wouldn't be jetting off to foreign countries to badmouth us. So that's not patriotic, is it? And that's exactly what Keir Starmer said. So yes, no, he's not patriotic at all. And if he wasn't, he wouldn't be cutting us off from the campaigning to cut us off from our closest market, which was much better for our well-being.
And clearly, his party's doing well in the polls. Do you think this? I mean, it's going to be interesting to see whether this has put any dent in it. I don't know whether it will or it won't, which is why I'm asking people their view. Do you think this is the day, or yesterday was the day, he endangered that progress he's making here in Britain by going to the UK and trashing it?
I do dearly hope so, but unfortunately, even though Nigel Farage or any politician who has been who is a proven liar, people still won't care. They'll go, they just think this is all set up by some bunch of lefties, but it isn't. Obviously, this was real. But the trouble is, I really hope it does. That's the answer to this. I bloody well hope it does. Pardon my French.
Nigel Farage, I think, is a fraud. I sent it in a text. Speaking to your researcher, I think he's an absolute fraud. He says anything he can to score political points. And I think him going over there now to America and selling the country down the river, really, for a few more points. What is he? He come to my town when the steelworks were coming, got told they were going to be maybe shut down. Went and had a drink in the pub. I'm one of you. You're a banker. You've gone to a private school pretending to be one of us. He's just a grifter, an absolute grifter.
And what do you think he's playing at in America? What's going on?
He's selling us down the river. I tell you what it is. He's trying to gain points with the people who support him. He's trying to get people to go, oh, yeah, he's right. He's gone over there. He's trying to get tariffs on us. I don't even understand why that would be. Is that so he can say Keir Starmer's failed in his negotiations? I don't know. But to me, I don't understand why people like him. He's lied about Brexit. He lied about what he'd achieve. He lies constantly. Well, I say he does. I just think he's wrong. I think he's selling the country down the river.
And you would call that a betrayal, would you?
I would, yeah. I mean, who in the right mind wants their own country? Who goes lobbying to America to put tariffs or extra sanctions on their own country? How does that benefit anyone? Can anyone explain that?
Judy says, the idea that Donald Trump dares to lecture anyone on free speech is beyond belief. It's getting worse by the day here. He's shutting down, in America, he's shutting down media, any and all opponents, universities and any group which doesn't bend to his will. Farage is just another Trump sycophant and self-serving with his own goals. I believe that Putin is behind the whole push to continue to crush Western nations from the inside. Dangerous and surreal times, says Judy. And one here, let's hope this does trip up Farage, but unfortunately the right-wing press will not expose him for what he is. He gets a free pass. He must be held to the same standards as other politicians. What is the guy talking about at the moment? Absolutely delusional, says this texter.
Nigel Farage is a traitor to this country.
It's a strong word.
He is a traitor. How can he go to the most powerful country in the world and request that they punish British citizens, make life harder? He's got form. Remember what his part in Brexit, right? He was the primary instigator for us to leave the EU, right? And how has that benefited us? Not a jot, not in any way possible, right?
Well, he appeals to a lot of people.
He appeals to a lot of people, but that man he's a Poundland Trump. He's using Trump's playbook, copying it. As one of your former callers already said, we're all talking about him, but the man is a traitor. Do not vote a traitor to be the leader of this country.
Oh, OK, Caroline, I'll leave it there because I can tell how passionate you are about your thoughts on it. Caroline in Fulham.